I'd like to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. Peace and safety to the hopefully elect, all the sincere Akim scattered throughout the four corners, pushing his word in sincerity and in truth, out of a pure heart. And for those who don't know Yahweh, that's the name of the Heavenly Father, who the world ignorantly calls God and Yahushai. That's the name of the only begotten Son, who the world ignorantly called Jesus Christ. And this is another edition of biblical interpretation. And in this edition, I'm going to go into Hebrews chapter 7 concerning Yahushua and the elect. And this is Hebrews chapter 7 verse 24. And it reads, "But this man, because he continueth ever have an unchangeable priesthood." And that man is referring to Yahushua, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. And that unchangeable priesthood is basically referring to the elect. And I'm going to show you that through the precepts. So this is verse 25. It says, "Wherefore he is able also to save them." And that them will be referring to the elect, to the uttermost that come into the power by him. And that's the proof that the elect is going to be delivered from the four corners of the earth, from the uttermost parts of the earth, and not just from amongst Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. So reading on, it says, "Seeing he ever liveth to make intercession for them." And that them is referring to the elect. So reading on verse 26, which is the point, it says, "For such a high priest became us." Referred to those, to the elect. All right, to the 144,000. Those in Revelations, who Yahushua referred to as kings and priests. So it says, "For such an high priest became us, who is holy, harmless, undefiled, separate from sinners, and made higher than the heavens." Now I want to get a couple precepts and deal with and show you who it's referring to when it says, when it refers to the holy, to the harmless, the undefiled, and separate from sinners. And the first precept I want to get is in the book of Ephesians, chapter 3 and verse 5. So this is the book of Ephesians, chapter 3 and verse 5. And it reads, which in other ages was not made known unto the sons of man, as it is now revealed unto his holy apostles. So that's who it's referring to, the us, the them, the holy apostles and prophets by the Spirit. Now let's get another precept and prove that further. In the book of Revelations, chapter 18 and verse 20. "Rejoice over her, thou heavens, and ye holy apostles and prophets, for the power have avenged you on her." And that her is referring to Babylon, Mystery Babylon, that great dragon, referring to the nation of Edom. So this is verse 20 again. It says, "Rejoice over her, thou heavens, and ye holy apostles and prophets, for the power have avenged you on her." So going back to the book of Hebrews, chapter 7 and verse 26, and it reads, "For such an high priest became us, who is holy." That's referring to the elect, starting with the apostles and the prophets. Alright, so it says harmless. And I want to get another precept and show you what it's referring to, who it's referring to. when it speaks of the harmless, it shows you that that's also referring to the Lord's elect. So this is Matthew chapter 10 and verse 16. And it reads, Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as a serpent and harmless as doves. So that's who it's referring to in the book of Hebrews as being holy and harmless, the Lord's elect. So going back to the book of Hebrews, chapter 7, verse 26, and it reads, For such an high priest became us, who is holy, and we know that's referring to the apostles and prophets, all right, the elect. It says harmless, referring to the Lord's men. So it reads undefiled. Now I want to get a precept here in the book. Let's see here. Let's see. The book of Philippians, chapter 2 and verse 15. Let's see here. This is Philippians chapter 2 and verse 15. That ye may be blameless and harmless, the sons of the power, without rebuke in the midst of a crooked and perverse nation. And that crooked and perverse nation is referring to Israel, man. All right. So that blameless and harmless is referring to the elect. All right. The Israel of God, the Israel of Yahweh, the Lord's elect. So it says that ye may be blameless and harmless, the sons of God. All right. That's the Israel of God. It says without rebuke in the midst of a crooked and perverse nation, among whom ye shine as lights in the world, referring to the Lord's elect. All right, that's who it's referring to. So when you go back to the book of Hebrews 7:26, and it says, who is holy, harmless, undefiled, separate from sinners. Now we know that holy, harmless, undefiled is referring to the Lord's elect. So it says separate from sinners. Now I want to get another precept. Let's see here in the book of Revelations, chapter 14, verse 4, and deal with that undefiled. It says, these are they, referring to the elect, that royal priesthood. So it says, these are they which were not defiled with woman. And that woman not referring to a literal woman, is referring to philosophies, man. Referring to the wisdom of this world. The Lord refers to wisdom as a woman. All right, so the elect wouldn't be defiled with these philosophies and the wisdom of this world. All right, so it says, for they are virgins, meaning they're undefiled. These are they which follow the Lamb, Yahushua, wheresoever he goeth. These were redeemed from among men, being the first fruit unto the power and unto the Lamb. So that's those who are separate from sinners. And let me give you a few more examples of what it's referring to when it says separate from sinners. Go to the book of Romans. The book of Romans chapter, let's see here. Chapter 1 and verse 1. Because when you read the book of Hebrews, that's the Apostle Paul writings. So this is Romans chapter 1 and verse 1. It says, Paul, a servant of Yahushua, called to be an apostle, separated unto the gospel of the power, meaning separate from sinners. All right. So that's what it's referring to, and that's who it's referring to in the book of Hebrews, chapter 7. Let me get another precept and prove that point further in 2 Corinthians, chapter 6. 2 Corinthians, chapter 6, and verse 17. It says, wherefore come out from among them, meaning those sinners. All right, be separate from those sinners. Reading on, it says, be ye separate, saith the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. All right, referring to those virgins. All right, those who are undefiled. All right, those who are separate from sinners. And basically what it's referring to, let's go back to the book of Hebrews, chapter 8. Hebrews, chapter 8. And show you what it's referring to when it says separate from sinners. Let's see here. This is the book of Hebrews, chapter 8. Chapter 8. And I'm going to start at verse 10. And it says, for this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days. And the house of Israel is referring to those who are referred to as holy, undefiled, harmless, and separate from sinners, man. And what makes them separate from sinners is the Lord being merciful to their sins, man. All right, so that's the house of Israel, referring basically to the elect. After those days, saith the Lord, I will put my laws into their mind and write them in their hearts, and I will be to them a power, and they shall be to me a people. Referring to the elect. It is not referring to all Israel. Let's prove that further. Verse 11, and they shall not teach every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, know ye the Lord, for all shall know me. And the all is referring to those who are spoke of in Hebrews 7. The elect, basically, man. That's the all, not referring to the whole nation of Israel. Remember, the Lord commanded his men to be separate from that wicked and perverse nation, referring to the nation of Israel. So it says, for all shall know me, from the least to the greatest. Why? Because the Lord is going to send the comforter. And from that, the comforter shall teach you all things. All right? And that's what that's referring to. But the point here in verse 12, it says, for I, referring to the Lord, remember it's thus saith the Lord. So it says, for I will be merciful to their unrighteousness, and their sins and their iniquities will I remember no more. All right, so that's what makes the elect separate from sinners. All right, the Lord being merciful to their sins. So now let's go back to Hebrews 7 and chapter 26, Salakia, chapter 7, verse 26, and read it without any private interpretations. It says, for such a high priest became us, referring to those that follow the Lamb wheresoever he goeth. That basically that royal priesthood that spoke of in 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 9. So it says, for such a high priest became us, who is holy, harmless, undefiled, separate from sinners, referring to the elect, and made higher than the heavens. Verse 27, it says, who needed not daily as those high priests to offer up sacrifice, first for his own sins and then for the people. Because going back to the law, the high priest, let's get it here in the book of Leviticus. The high priest basically had to offer up sacrifices daily for his own sins and for his house. So this royal priesthood don't have to do that. And I'm going to read why. But before we do that, let's get this in the book of Leviticus chapter 16 and verse 6, dealing with Aaron, the high priest. It says, and Aaron shall offer his bullock of the sin offering, which is for himself. All right, so the Apostle Paul, under the command of Yahushua, being part of that royal priesthood, called the elect, showing you that they don't have to, under the order of Yahushua, they don't have to offer up sin daily. And I'm going to show you why. It says, which is for himself, referring to Aaron, and making atonement for himself and for his house. And for his house. So, going back to the book of Hebrews 7:27, it says, who needed not daily as those high priests, like we just read about the high priest Aaron, to offer up sacrifice, first for his own sins, and then for the people. For this he did once, referring to Yahushua, when he offered up himself. So that's the sacrifice for the elect. Alright, the Lord himself. Alright. And basically that's the point. I hope you brothers was edified. And with that, I'm going to say shalom.